Welcome to our latest episode of Tech Africa News Tech Talk Thursday. Today we dive into the hottest topic that's been taking the industry by storm, artificial intelligence. AI has been at the forefront of news, conferences, and trade shows for the past months. Today we're chatting with Daniel Mausoof, Head of Technology and Solutions at Nokia, to explore both exciting opportunities and the potential challenges that AI presents for the African market. Nice to have you on board, Daniel.
Nice to be here. Great to be talking to Tech Africa and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Let us start with the most underestimated part in the whole ecosystem, networks and connectivity. So with the demand for more resilient networks in Africa, how is Nokia using artificial intelligence to help overcome these challenges? Or can AI be a driver for, let's say, making networks more resilient?
Great question. So first of all, the most important part for networks is how networks perform and how you automate operations in a network. And for both these elements, AI will play a very pivotal role, as it does today. So it's important to take a step back and look at the market as such. And today, overall in Middle East Africa, we have both flavors. We have high performing networks which are driven by 5G when it comes to the GCC and Saudi. And then you have markets like Africa where you have a current development where 4G is still a fundamental part of what is being used by consumers. And in both these environments, there are many areas where AI plays a role today. From a product standpoint, we as Nokia are making sure that our products are using AI components already. So we have RAN embedded elements in there when you look at things like performance on the radio level, on a cell level, and so on and so forth. We also have our Manta Ray portfolio, which is using AI ML to allow network traffic optimization, so automation on operation level, also ensuring that this applies different aspects to save energy. So there are many elements all on the performance layer which are impacted by what we do from a product R&D perspective. We're also trying to do that from an operational perspective when we talk about automating networks, self-organizing networks, and allowing cognitive elements to come forward and driving those improvements, which ultimately impact how operators are able to use their networks, build their networks, and also optimize OpEx, which is a big concern for operators, especially in Africa today.
Okay, thank you. So when we look at the rural and semi-rural areas in Africa, I mean, they struggle a lot. We struggle a lot to bring connectivity there, to maintain connectivity, and even to upgrade networks. Would you say that the latest, let's say, stage of AI could be a game changer in boosting connectivity in those areas?
Look, AI is a very broad term, and I think we need to break it into certain parts. So you talk about something which is very close to my heart, which is rural connectivity. And rural connectivity is a fundamental issue today. You know, you talk about connecting the unconnected, and there are many solutions already where Africa market is being seen as a testing ground. For us, for Nokia, we've been pushing something called Rural Connect, where we're trying to bring more sustainable off-grid solutions which are low cost and allowing the operators to deploy in these areas where they are not able to deploy high capex, right? Because they don't have that ARPU to develop. So we're already doing what we can from a product standpoint and allowing that to be deployed with ultra low cost solutions. Now, to enhance that, yes, AI will play a role. And I come back to the point that when you deploy these products, which are new to the market, and we're allowing low energy consuming products, which is fundamentally very important, there is AI embedded in the product R&D, which allows us to do so. And as we move towards 5G Advanced and 6G, there are study items that are being done by 3GPP that continuously will improve those mechanisms that are in 5G Advanced and 6G and so on. So we continue to do that on the product side. Another important element will be how we could use some of the edge applications in rural, which is something that will also develop in the next couple of years, how we will be using AI in those edge applications to allow optimization of resources and allowing less energy to be consumed, and the applications to be accessed much faster, much cleaner for the consumer. And again, I come back to the operational aspect. Rural is no different than what we do in urban. If you're able to optimize cell pattern, how the software features react when the traffic pattern is lower, those will be optimized to these cognitive use case that we're applying. So for us, urban and rural network will be no different in terms of fundamentals of AI. So that will play an important role, definitely. Is it going to be a game changer? I think AI is a game changer. It is how we use it, how do we deploy it, how do we enhance it, and how we augment it with us ensuring that it has the right impact and allows us to develop and monetize networks the way we're expected to for the consumers.
All right. So if I understand you right, it would mean that AI is, I mean, there's several verticals where it can help. When we look, for example, at how networks are used or how can we optimize networks. So let's say the management of big data, to analyze it. So which also plays in a role when we talk about the efficient network. So, but at the end of the day, when we talk about automations internally and operational wise, so that must also help to reduce the costs for networks, especially when we talk about these rural areas.
Absolutely. So if I talk about optimization, there are many different proof of concepts that are out there. So quality of service, how do you shape quality of service ultimately? There will be dynamic configurations that you could possibly use, and how do you predict and adjust traffic patterns that are going on. So that has an impact on ultimately how much OpEx is used. Let me give you an example, right? When you go through a traffic scenario, 24 hours, traffic varies, right? In a certain area, in a high consumption area, you would see traffic pattern to go high when you have working people there. At night, traffic pattern will go down. So what do you do at that point in time? You can shut down certain cells when the traffic pattern is low. And that is done through a programmatic way, which is deployed through algorithms with self-learning algorithms that look at traffic pattern and then optimize that elements as needed. So it could be shutting down certain cells, it could be optimizing traffic, and all of that is done through AI. And the ultimate impact of that optimization is on your OpEx, because you've shut down cells, your energy consumption goes down, your operating cost goes down. So those are the elements that will come in. That's one element. The other one could be, how do you do capacity predictions? You could look at where, by certain model training, using our self-organized networks, you could look at, okay, well, during the weekends, every other week, there is something happening in a certain area. So you could predict through these traffic patterns what could be happening in the future, and deploy the resources there from another part of the network where you don't need them. So that is also optimizing your usage of the network as needed, reducing congestion, reducing load, ultimately creating a bigger impact of where it's needed, and all that ends up reducing OpEx and costs.
All right. So based on what you said, we should be in a position within the next, let's say, 12 months to also create a kind of a blueprint of understanding rural, let's say, areas a bit more in depth. Because as of today, we know we have the struggles, but in some of the areas, development is going to the next level. We solve some of the issues, but with this vast amount of data, plus the AI analytic tools, it should help as well to speed up the whole process.
Absolutely. I think there are fundamental things we need to do. Today, if you ask me, we need to look at what is the solution that rural deployments need. And I'm happy to say for Nokia, we have Rural Connect, where we're able to deploy these low-cost solutions, which are completely off-grid, deploy them with the right cost so people can get that connectivity that they need. Next step is, how do we utilize all our automation through our SON platform, our self-organized network platform, to optimize that efficiency topics that we had on energy, also deploy some cognitive modules which allow traffic patterns to be predicted, optimized, and so on and so forth. And fundamentally, bringing all that together is what we do on our products, making sure our product are top of the line in terms of quality, making sure we've got the right energy efficiency elements in there, and ensuring Every operator today is asking about sustainability, and that needs to sit at the center of what we're doing in our R&D. And we're very happy to say that all our products meet and exceed what we want to commit to the industry in terms of energy consumption.
Thank you. It was very interesting. So when we look, the latest reports are stating that AI could contribute up to 15.7 trillion US dollar to the global economy by already 2030, with Africa potentially gaining 1.2 trillion of that impact. Could you tell us a bit more about, you just mentioned off-grid solution, which is also a very interesting point. Could you give us some more details how it would work for, let's say, rural areas especially?
So off-grid solutions is built on the fact that when you're deploying these mobile sites in a completely ultra rural environment, you don't have grid networks. If you do, they're probably not very well established. So what we've done, we've looked at building a solution which is 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, which allows us to develop a very lean structure, which is based on the requirement, could be a single sector or a multiple sector deployment, which is very lean, which allows us to deploy completely using solar and batteries, so there's no power needed from the grid, and provide the right amount of network coverage and capacity that is needed for these low consumption areas, and do that all in a way that it's affordable for the operator. So we're working with many operators in Africa today, some of the large groups that are operating in Africa, and we're trialing the solution in multiple markets, successfully trialing the solution in multiple markets. And now we're looking at where we could be potentially deploying this in areas across Tanzania, Kenya, and other markets as well. So we're looking at doing that so that it allows us to deploy these solutions at a low-cost way, and also the running OpEx of these solutions is very low because you have no generators on site, you have no grid, you have a very lean tower structure, and you're able to do this completely off-grid. One additional point that I would make, we're also exploring additional sources of energy. So we're looking at solar as a primary, but we've looked at wind, for example, if we can do something with that in certain areas. It turns out to be slightly more expensive, but it could work in certain environments where it's potentially the business case qualifies.
Thank you. So when we look at Africa as a continent, the continent is very young. I would say, I think the latest statistics are saying over 50% of the population are below 30 in Africa. So when we talk about economical growth on the continent, it's all about connectivity. We must connect them. So it's very interesting to hear what solution you bring to place and how you can help, especially with off-grid solutions, which we know load shedding, other energy struggles in the countries. So when we look at the bigger scope of AI, we talked a lot about rural areas. What do you see as the biggest opportunities for Africa when we talk about AI as a technology booster?
Look, I think there are multiple things that we look at in Nokia. So Nokia today supplies mobile networks, IP networks, optics, fixed networks, and cloud and network structure across the globe. So Africa is very important for all of these technologies. So I represent mobile networks, but I also represent Nokia as an overall company, which has portfolios end-to-end addressing each of those elements, which is a need for Africa. So if you look at fixed deployments, it's a very important part of what's happening in Africa today. If you look at IP networks, data centers, this is also a big part of what is happening. And in each one of those fundamental verticals, AI plays an absolutely important role. If I take you out to, we talked briefly about enterprises, we're offering private wireless networks into enterprises today. It is one of our biggest growth areas where we look at campus networks being supplied to utilities, mining, and so on and so forth. And the use cases that we drive through those networks are, of course, AI-enabled use cases. And there's a huge list of use cases that could be deployed in those networks. So AI fundamentally is embedded both on the product side, of course, but also in the way the use cases come into play, which will all impact each of the areas that we talked about. So for us in mobile networks, we talked a little bit about rural, but let's not forget the urban networks. Africa is a growing market. We have about 14 to 15 5G licenses being deployed in the next couple of years. This is going to be a very important part for Africa to take that next step. And there we have fundamentally been working with all the operators. It is part of our growth strategy in Nokia, Middle East Africa, to go after these growing markets and establish ourselves on the mobile network side. So that opportunity, of course, is a level playing field for all vendors, and AI will fundamentally be an important part of driving our product portfolio, such as self-organized networks and so on. We also have a cloud and networks business, which looks at many of the topics on monetization, looks at how AI plays into attributing different data sources, making sure the operators have the right level of access to their customers, both enterprise and CSP. So if we go dig into the different portfolios, we could talk a bit more about what each of those portfolio elements constitute of and why AI is such an important part of that.
All right, then let me pick out of interest enterprises. How do you see their struggles, and what would you say? How can Nokia or your solutions also help to give them the right strength for the networks and also for the economic growth?
I think enterprise is a big part of Nokia today because we have been working very much on defined verticals. If you look today, Nokia serves mining verticals, utility verticals, public sector, logistics, warehousing, all of those. And a fundamental offering to enterprises starts with private wireless from a mobile network standpoint, as well as what we call enterprise campus edge. So we look at offering private wireless networks, may it be 4G, 5G, and offering those as a key driver for connectivity for enterprises, which is something which is needed in all of these segments. For us, there is another element where we are looking at how we are able to drive the IP optics business, which is a fundamentally important part of enterprises today. It is a very big growth business. Again, I represent mobile networks here, but we have a networks infrastructure business that is supplying IP optics products across enterprise as well, which is again related to connectivity. Now, what is important for us is connectivity is what we do, right? And we have a extensive portfolio that allows that. But we have been working towards the use cases more. We're trying to sell to enterprises in terms of what they need from a use case perspective, allowing collaboration with our partners, bringing them on board and making sure that we've got the right elements in place to take it forward. I'll give you an example from my previous role where I was leading services globally for enterprise, and this is a business that still carries on, is about how you're able to bring use cases into the mining sector, right? So you look at autonomous hauling, for example. Autonomous hauling takes a lot of different partners to bring it together. So we provide the connectivity layer. We work with the device manufacturers. We're able to automate that whole use case and bring that together for one of the largest mining companies in the world. So we work across with our enterprise customers, looking at the use cases first and driving that down towards connectivity, which we know we're fundamentally leading. But working with partners, collaborating with the industry, allowing us to work together for our customers, it's a very different approach in enterprise than it is in CSP. Of course, we take the same use case-based approach with the CSPs as well, our operators, mobile operators. And then they also have an intention to go to the enterprise market. So we work with them, what we can, in what we call service provider as a partner, trying to access the verticals that I referred to earlier.
All right, so we could say as a conclusion, AI-powered networks are the future or will be the new state of the art.
Yeah, I think it is, as an industry, it is an exciting time. We need to collaborate and work together to ensure that we're using AI to the best of its use in our networks. We recently, as Nokia Bell Labs, issued a white paper which talks about generative AI and how it affects telco operations. And I think it is important that we as an industry come together to understand the implications and fast track where we could optimize the benefit for our customers. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your insights and feedback. It was very interesting and insightful.
Thank you for having me. It's great to talk to Tech Africa and to many more.
Thank you. That was Tech Africa News with Tech Talk Thursday. You can find more on techafricanews.com.